That's pretty fun. You've tried it all, really.
I'm really a gamer. I've been a gamer almost all my life.
He has 80,000 followers across the internet, 7+ million channel views, one half of well-known Hearthstone podcast HSBG, icon of competitive Hearthstone community. Welcome, Shadybunny, to Streamforge Radio.
Hey.
How are you today?
Good to be here. Thank you for having me.
We're glad to have you, and we're super excited to get to know the person behind the camera. We'd love to dig a little bit deeper, because you know how it is. Stream on, it's like a facade that builds up as a content creator. Do you feel that way?
For my stream, it's just me. I don't really think that it's a bad thing if you do have a bit of a persona or you act a different way. Sometimes it's just, really funny or it's on brand or whatnot. But for me, I think that'd be exhausting. I do stream every day and, 6 hours, 7 hours or so. So I like to just be me. So I'm just hanging out with my chat.
That's pretty cool. I feel like it's not uncommon necessarily, but it's also not something that everybody can do or has the ability to do. Because I feel like having a camera and dozens, hundreds, or thousands of people watching you live and commenting on what you're doing can be daunting for a lot of people out there, right? So it's great to know that you have this ability to just be yourself and not worry so much, I guess, about what other people think. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, that's fair. I think it's also just experience and sort of learning how to, I guess, deal with yourself first, where you're like, okay, am I comfortable with who I am, especially on camera, right? Am I comfortable showing that? And if you are, I think that makes things a lot easier.
Yeah, for sure. And we have you on a podcast today. You're also the co-host of the HSBG podcast. And you do that with Educated Collins, correct?
That is correct, yeah.
You guys have 68 episodes. What is the podcast about?
Well, Collins and I are very good friends. We go way back, and we are both playing BGs for quite a while now, and we just wanted to talk about the game. There wasn't really a high-level discussion, so whenever a new patch comes out or there's a tournament or whatever happens, changes to the game mainly, we just talk about it. We talk about how we're playing, how this change might affect the meta, which heroes we think are going to be strong, or if a new hero is announced, do we like it, do we not like it, stuff like that. It's pretty much for anyone who plays BGs, but I would say specifically for those looking for higher level discussion of strong leaderboard players.
And how would you describe Hearthstone Battlegrounds to someone that may not be familiar with it, or maybe just familiar with Hearthstone?
So Battlegrounds is an auto battler. The basic structure of an auto battler is that you have two phases. One phase is a shopping phase where you improve your team. So you create your own board, your own team of, in this case, your Hearthstone minions, up to 7 of them. And then there is the combat phase where you play one of 7 other players in your lobby. So you're in a lobby with 8 players. And then your minions do battle. Whoever has the strongest team wins the round. Depending on by how much you've won, you will deal more or less damage to your opponent. You start with 40 health, and the last person standing wins the whole thing.
So very similar to TFT.
Yeah,
right?
TFT, Dota Auto Chess. It'll absolutely have its nuances, and Battlegrounds is pretty specific in that there's all kinds of things that are not in TFT and vice versa. But yes, the general concept is the same.
Yeah. And do you do typically is it an episode with just the two of you guys, or do you bring guests to the podcast as well?
We have definitely brought on guests. Probably not in a super high rate, but recently we've had two of the Hearthstone Battleground developers, Dom and Mitchell, on the show when the new season was about to start. We were able to get them on and reveal some cards and talk about a new mechanic that was introduced. We've also had other high-level players on, but your generic episode will be Collins and myself talking through a patch, talking through our week, talking about a tournament, etc.
That's very cool. And would you say that is a good place to start if you're looking to get into Hearthstone Battlegrounds, or is this more for like veterans of the game?
I would say that the podcast itself assumes that you play. So we are not going to be, going over the basics of the game. We also didn't do that in episode 1. It's really there for established players. But there are tons and tons of streams where, we have a really, really welcoming community. And if you are a new player, and especially if you preface your questions with, hey, I'm a new player, and then you ask your question, I would say a very high percentage of the community is going to be very happy to answer any question you have.
That's very cool. A fellow podcaster, that's always fun. What got you to go from, hey, I'm creating content, streaming content, to, hey, let's do a podcast on top of it? Like, what was the mindset there?
Well, when you're playing your game, it's pretty difficult to really go in depth about specific topics that might not apply to that specific game you're playing at the moment. So let's say I'm playing a very specific game of Battlegrounds. Sure, I can tell, my audience like, hey, here, I bought this minion because of that reason. I'm afraid to fight this player, etc., etc. But if I just want to have a talk about the patch, sure, I can just, take time aside on my stream and say, okay, we won't be playing the game right now. I'm just going to sit here and talk about the patch. But that's way more fun when you do it with a friend, and you can, exchange ideas and look at opinions. Sometimes we disagree on something, or one person pulls another person to their side, or Collins has a great point and is like, oh, I didn't even realize that this card is probably strong. I completely underestimated that. So it's just way nicer to do it with someone else. So I just wanted to talk about the game and, give my opinion, because I play this game so much that sometimes there's certain concepts about the game and ideas and meta strategies that are really fun to share, stuff that you've done. It's like, oh, this is really cool. I want to tell this, I want to share this and, allow other people to experience this. And, I think the podcast is the perfect vehicle for that.
Mm-hmm. And you spend so much time, as you said, like to develop those strategies. Might as well share them with the world, right? Or those thoughts, because that's what you do most of the time, right?
Yeah. Well, there's obviously a little bit of a conflict there where other, very high level players, they could be listening in and maybe say,
Right.
ooh, this is cool. But most of the time we do give them credit where, they probably would either, they've already figured this out on their own, or they would figure it out. And I think that's a very, very small trade-off. I think it's still just fun to show people like, hey, like we're here to help your game. So if we find something cool, we'll let you know.
And how's the community for HSBG? Like, is it growing? Is it a competitive scene? Like, if someone wants to join in on the fun, like what can they expect?
So Battlegrounds overall has a pretty good competitive scene right now, where there is a almost monthly tournament by Blizzard, so supported by the publisher of the game, where the top 16 of each ladder gets invited to that tournament. So that's the top 16 of the European servers, American servers, and the Asia Pacific. They play in a tournament that's 48 people, and then the top 12 advance to the next stage. They get joined by the top 4 from the China region. They have their own tournament. And those 16 players, they have this really nice 2-day tournament. And at the end, the last player, right, the first in the last 8 gets the grand prize of, I believe, $10,000. I think the total prize pool is $50,000, and that's, I believe, 10 times this year for a total of $500,000. So that's super cool for me. I was playing the game before that competitive that incentive was there by Blizzard. So this was just an incredibly nice bonus to almost every month have that extra reason to push for your higher rank on the leaderboard so that you do qualify to enter that tournament.
Have you ever won any money?
I've won money playing in Hearthstone Battlegrounds, but I have not won in Hearthstone Battlegrounds tournaments, but those weren't specific from Blizzard. I've won money in Twitch Rivals numerous times, but in the specific, it's called Lobby Legends. That's what the Battlegrounds, the Blizzard one tournament is called. In that one, I have not made it yet into the second stage. So I've made it into the first stage where the 48 players, the top 16 of each region. I've made it to that one 3 times, but I have not yet qualified to the last day. So the top 12 of that tournament, they guaranteed have some money.
Okay. And so that's still pretty impressive. Let's be honest here.
I like how I'm growing as a player. Now, my friend Collins, he's always just really, really good at everything he does. So I try not to compare myself to him because, of course, the first time he played, he immediately made it through. So he got to play on the big, it's not a big stage. It's played online, but, he got to make it to day 2. And he's made it to the tournament, I think, 5 times or so for qualifications. And he's gone through to day 1 time in the past. And then this next tournament, he will be in the final 16 as well. So I'll be rooting for him.
So there's like some friendly competition there, though, right?
Oh,
it's Is he your best friend and your nemesis at the same time? Is that it?
Well, so especially because he's American, I'm European. We do play on different servers. So yeah, sometimes he does give me some shit about, the European server being easier, blah, 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 or this or that.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah. And then I've played on the American server before and, gotten a high rank there. So it's, we do give each other a little banter here and there.
Yeah.
But, we do root for each other. And, if one player isn't doing as well, the other player we'll try to lift each other up and say, okay, what's going wrong? Let's maybe, think about the game together. But yeah, so it's a little bit of rivalry, but not very much.
It'd be pretty fun to have you both play each other in that tournament at some point, right?
We have qualified at the same time to that first stage. So the ladder being the first stage, I suppose, the second stage being the 48 player tournament. We've both made it to that second stage where we did have to play each other in the lobby, and I knocked him out at some point, but we can't play with the name tags showing in that tournament. So we don't actually know who we're playing in this very specific round. So I know that he's in the lobby. I know that he's one of the 8 players, but each round you fight a different player. So I don't know which round I'm fighting him. So I'm continuously thinking, oh, I'm getting really strong this round. I really hope I'm not hitting Collins here because I might kill him. And I think when we were down to the final 4 in that lobby, I did knock him out. So yeah, that was unfortunate. But yeah, that's part of the reason, I suppose, why they tell you to not show the names, so you can't have any favoritism. You can, go a little easy on your friend.
But what's missing? What do you need to improve on in order to make it consistently to the next phase for those tournaments, those monthly tournaments?
So we have a lot of players from the Asia Pacific region that are extremely consistent, and when it comes down to their gameplay, they are, I would say, more conservative. So in this game, you can take risks, and you absolutely need to take risks, especially when you play on ladder. So a lot of the players that play on the EU and the NA region, they get such high MMR, matchmaking rating, that when they finish in the top 4, that's not good enough. They have to get first or second. So I would say that this incentivizes a quite risky playstyle where you assume you're going to be stronger than the people you're playing against. So you will cut corners here and there to try and get further ahead to make sure that you get first or second. That doesn't always work, but that works well enough to climb and to put yourself in a top 16 position. I've played some games on the Asia Pacific region, and it's much more tempo oriented there. So you can't cut those corners as easily. So I would say that meta, it's much more, okay, you have to be strong, you have to fight, you have to be a little bit more conservative. And I think they're just much more practiced in that way of playing, and I think that way of playing is the way to go for these tournaments. So I would say it's really getting good at playing a conservative play style, but then making sure that you can still do well, because it's obviously easy to play defensive and then not really have a late game plan and still end up doing poorly. So it's not as easy as, oh, just play defensive in the early game. You need to actually be good at it and then transition out of that defensive posture into something that can win the game afterwards.
Would it be fair to say risk management would be a good thing that
Yeah,
the Asian players
think
do?
it's just adjusting your playstyle to who you're playing. So you have to take bigger risks indeed when you are playing on the ladder, because you need that first or second place finish of your 8-player lobby. Whereas if you're playing in these qualifiers, if you just get a bunch of top fours, if you just get second, third, fourth, maybe a fifth here or there, that's going to be fine. You're going to continue to the next stage because you're not expected to win the whole thing. You just need to be top 12 of the 48. So
Right.
yeah, it's just maybe taking less risks in those lobbies.
So, going back in time a bit, now you started creating content. Someday you woke up and you decided, I'm going to be a content creator now. What what got into you? What made you decide to go from being a gamer to being a streamer?
I enjoyed playing with other people and just teaching and just explaining why I'm doing what I'm doing. So it just felt extremely natural where like I started, excuse me. So the very first streams I did were StarCraft 2. That was a very, very long time ago. I was still in high school at the time, or barely just out.
So 10 years ago or so?
Well, yeah, I am. Yeah, it's fair to say 12 years ago. Like
Yeah.
that's where it started a little bit here and there. But I would say consistently, it was when I was playing League of Legends. So I had a little bit of experience just sharing my gameplay to, say, classmates or this or that. We're in school and we're just sharing the stream. But when I was playing League of Legends, that's where it really started. Trying to remember exactly how old I was, but it's been probably 9 years or so. Yeah, where I've been quite consistently just streaming and playing. So that begun just to a small crowd of people I knew in the game and just online, and you said like, hey, I'm streaming, so if you guys want to watch, check it out here. And it was very natural for me to talk while I play. I see that a lot of newer streamers, or just people aren't used to it. They just play and they have the camera running, and that can work for some people. I would say that when somebody tunes into your stream, you do have a very short window of time to essentially distinguish yourself from the other people that are trying to make it, that are trying to grow. And a lot of the time, if you just see someone sitting there not saying anything, playing, it's hard to say, like, it's hard to convey, like, hey, this is actually a cool place to hang out, and I'm actually good at this game, or however you want to make it valuable for people to watch. So I had the luck, I suppose, that it was extremely natural for me to just share what I was thinking about the game. So I played League of Legends. I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna go bot lane now because I've shoved the mid lane and I have some pressure, and the opponent isn't gonna know that I'm gone, etc. Blah 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 blah. And that has just been constant throughout my streaming.
I think it's I mean, you call it luck. I don't know if that just came to you out of thin air, but I'm sure it comes from somewhere, someplace. Your personality, at the very least. But I think for a game like League, it's a very complex. The ceiling is very high, and as a League player, like, you're consistently trying to improve. So, having knowledge about a game like this, or you mentioned StarCraft, is something very similar in my mind in terms of like the ceiling.
Yeah.
It's a popular game with a high ceiling. You always continuously want to improve. So going to a stream of someone playing League and getting the silent treatment there and not understanding what the person's doing, I think it's detrimental to someone, especially starting out, you know? Like, if you watch Tyler 1, well, he speaks all the time, but if you watch Tyler 1 and he doesn't say nothing, you know the guy, and you're just waiting for him to do something that's gonna make you laugh or something, you know? But as a new content creator, you need to have, I think it's crucial, really. I'll say crucial to have that interaction, because a lot of people are looking for that shared knowledge, the education aspect of someone more experienced than yourself playing, not yourself, but than myself, for example, playing League, right? So that's amazing. And so you played League, then what happened? Are you still playing League right now?
Oh, right. Yeah. So I actually had quite some challenges throughout my, well, I guess who doesn't, right? Throughout my streaming career. But so I played League a bunch, mainly season 3, season 4. Streamed League a bunch. I played League since before ranked was a thing. So I was, I think I started when Nidalee came out or so. It's a very, very old champion. And I developed some issues with my wrists. So I had to take time away from streaming and away from the game. And long story short, that issue persisted for 3 years. Now, I didn't stop streaming for 3 years. I did take, I think, 9 months or so to figure out, okay, what am I doing here? And eventually I came around to, okay, I won't be able to play League anymore. So that's how I got into Hearthstone. I'd played a ton of card games when I was a kid, and I was playing Magic quite recently until, I made that swap to Hearthstone. And that was much more tolerable for me. And I also did a lot of co-ops where I played together with other people, and they would share their screen, or you could spectate them. And that way I wouldn't even have to click much playing Hearthstone, and we could just talk about the plays. And that's obviously something you can't really do in League. It's too, you can't really do like a League co-op. Like, oh, I think I would take that last hit, or watch out, the guy's ganking you. That would not be very fun. So, but that's completely fixed now. So I can play other games if I would like, but I've just had such a good time with Hearthstone, and the community and stuff. It's been super good to me. So I have no desire of going back and switching games.
And you're a card game guy, or card guy at heart, right?
Yeah.
So you've been playing cards since, I think, the age of 9. I'm correct?
That is correct.
What got you started with cards? Magic? Was it Magic, or?
The first card game was Pokemon. How did I get started? I feel like that was an elementary school thing where other kids had cards, and then I want cards too, and nag your mom and be like, I want cards, I want cards, I want cards. And then eventually, like after a long and many efforts and convincing her that it's not just, I'm not going to throw them away 2 weeks later and be done with them. I got some cards to play with, and then just figure out where other kids are playing with them. There was this local shop where they would sell cards, and in the back there was this room where we could then play against each other. So it was every weekend kids would gather there and play, and mini tournaments and such. So that's how it really got started with Pokemon. And then after Pokemon, there was also some Magic, but mainly Yu-Gi-Oh!
Mm-hmm.
And then I think 3 years of just Yu-Gi-Oh! And then I eventually at around 15, I switched into playing World of Warcraft. So that's, again, a different...
Okay.
So it's been games,
classic.
right? It's been games, always some card games or video games. But yeah, that was sort of that transition of just cards. And then, WoW encompasses everything all of a sudden. You're staying up late, school nights to do raids, etc. So, yeah.
And now Hearthstone, which is, the World of Warcraft universe, I guess, So that's pretty fun. You've tried it all, really.
I'm really, really a gamer. I've been a gamer almost all my life.
Do you still like play physical card games at all?
I you don't really get the well. That's not really true. I was gonna say you don't really get the chance anymore. It's just so much easier online.
Mm-hmm.
So I used to do a lot of FNMs, Friday Night Magic, where you draft, and
Yeah.
it's really fun. And then I just started Hearthstone, and I could just buy an arena run whenever I wanted. I could put my deck aside and continue playing whenever I wanted. I could buy it with in-game currency without having to pay for every draft over and over again. So that just got me so incredibly spoiled that it was hard to go back to physical cards. Although I do miss that feeling, right, of sleeves and shuffling cards and such. So I have played from time to time, but not enough to really say, oh, I play all the time.
Yeah.
So it's really been a very sporadic thing.
What are your thoughts on the state of card games right now? Because I've played Hearthstone. I played Hearthstone. I think it was in beta or something. And I'm not a very good card gamer, I guess I could say, player. But I'm a very curious gamer at heart, and I like to try new things. And I did spend quite a bit of time in Hearthstone, especially in the beginning. And as time moved on, I was decent at the game. Then I would take a break because that's what I do. I have a very hard time as a gamer to stick to one thing. So I'll play I'll be very intense, like playing one game, then I'll switch to something else. Then I may want to come back, and that's what I do sometimes. And I wanted to come back to Hearthstone, and I found it very difficult to get back to it because the meta changed drastically. New decks, new cards. At some point in time, they would put like the card that you purchased, like basically became obsolete if you wanted to play like the regular rules, I guess. Standard, I guess is the name, right? And so yeah, I felt like I had to dish out more money to get back into it, when we're not talking here about like $5-10. If you wanted to really build some competitive decks, you'd have to dish out a lot of money. So, and I think it's I wouldn't say it's a problem because clearly the game is doing well, and money is people have different perception about money and how much it's worth and so on and so forth. But for me, I did spend money on Hearthstone, but after a while I was like, all right, now I got to do it a third time, a fourth time to get back into it, and I just thought it was a lot. So what are your thoughts on the state of Hearthstone or card games in general? Because that's not, I'm talking about Hearthstone because that's what you're playing.
Sure.
But it's I'm sure Magic and Pokemon obviously is the same thing.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the current state of the card game community and state of the games when it comes to paying real money? Because yes, there's in-game currency, but there's in reality is you can't build a competitive deck with just in-game currency unless you play 24/7 for 6 months. So what are your thoughts on that?
So I'll start with the disclaimer that I have been playing Battlegrounds for quite a while now. So more longer than a year. And before that, I played a lot of Arena. So I don't have as much experience with constructed and the purchasing of packs to make the decks. But I have played obviously a lot of card games in my life. So this is something that comes up quite often because you have two different, or more than two different groups. So two distinct groups. You have the people that are used to playing card games. So Magic, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, the physical variant where you have to purchase the cards in order to play. So those are quite expensive hobbies, really, compared to some other stuff you can do. And then you have gamers that have played just online for free for a very long time, and then they find their way into Hearthstone, and then there is that contrast where they say, my God, this game is so incredibly expensive. And that is true if you compare that to other games that you can play online for free. And then you might have, an option for, because like League of Legends is a good example where you can play League entirely for free, but you can also spend money on it if you like.
Yep.
And that is, the same with Hearthstone where you can spend money, but indeed, as you mentioned, if you want to play a top tier deck in a reasonable amount of time, you will have to spend money. So I completely agree that if you are from just a pure gaming background and not card gaming background, that sounds ludicrous. If you are coming from a card game background, it's the most normal thing in the world. So it's really what you're used to. But yeah, it can be very difficult, and it's especially if, like you said, you've been out of the meta and then you have spent money on it and you expect that to go a long way. If you say leave the game alone for 2 years, that's an entire cycle. So all of those cards have rotated out, and you can dust them. You can essentially decimate everything you had, and I believe it's half or a quarter of the value you get back to then build your new deck. But that does feel bad, right? Those cards you had, and then you're dusting them at lower value to make those new cards. So the big difference there is that I would say on average, right, the card games online, it's cheaper from my experience. But the big downside is you can't sell your cards afterwards. So it depends a little bit on what you were used to. If you were a physical card gamer and you would go through the effort of, I'm done with my cards, now I'm going to list them on eBay or whatnot, you could, most of the time you wouldn't make any money on it based on what you paid back, when you got them, but you could make a good chunk back. And then maybe if you had some really rare card and good deals, you could maybe even make money. And that is not possible online. So I'd say for people who never bothered to sell them cards anyways, like online is cheaper. But for people that played physical card games and, put in the effort to sell the cards after you're done with them, it's more expensive.
I mean, physical cards going to be worth quite a bit of money, actually. Of course, a lot of them are not worth, much at all. But no, and that's fair. And I think I don't have an issue with their business plan at all. Personally, I've spent a lot of money on Hearthstone. I've spent a lot of money on League, and for Fortnite, I don't even talk about it. Let's not get into it. So I have no problem spending a lot of money. What I think is my issue, and it's not much a personal one, but more of I think it might be detrimental for the game itself, is that feeling when people are like, oh, I really want to get it back into it, but realizing how what is needed for them to really get back into it. So I think that, and I'm sure at Blizzard they're sitting around and thinking about ways to alleviate that feeling, because I'm sure it stops a lot of people from coming back to it when they're launching new patches or new decks and so on and so forth. But I love that they're expanding, I guess, the universe with Battlegrounds. I've personally never played it, but would you say it's a good going from, because a little thing about me is that I love the world, the Warcraft universe personally, and that's what really got me into Heroes of the Storm at the time. I was a Heroes of the Storm guy more than I was a League guy. Then when the game basically stopped being supported in a way, or being developed, got back into League. But I love that universe. Would you say someone that really loves the Warcraft universe would see a lot of value trying out Hearthstone Battlegrounds?
I would say it depends a little bit more if you have played any kind of auto battler and you enjoyed that feeling of, okay, I have to make some decisions in that shopping round, and then have a good idea of what my composition is going to look like in the late game and such. So if you're interested in that and you have some background in the Warcraft universe, that's obviously more fun because you will recognize some cards here or there, but there are definitely a lot of cards that are Battleground specific that will not, it's not like you've played WoW and then you go into Battlegrounds and you're like, oh, I know all these cards. It's no, you might know some things and some things might be familiar, but a lot of them are going to be oh, I've never seen this before. So I think it's more about, do you enjoy that auto battler style? And if you haven't tried it, I would say, definitely give it a shot, because it's all I've been playing really the past since Dota Auto Chess came out. I was just hooked. This was so much fun to, you always have that feeling, let's queue up that one more game and let's see if we get a really cool composition together, if my shops are really good and I can just buy a bunch of great minions.
Yeah, I mean, you got me sold, that's for sure. I'll try it out. I'm sure a lot of people at home listening or want to try it out as well. I think that the fact that, well, I wasn't even aware of the existence of the game, to be quite completely honest, and I had played TFT, which I enjoyed personally, so I think that could be a lot of fun. And I love how our guests are making me try all these new games. I had the same feeling with Milana, who came in. She's a Splatoon player, so she got me into playing Splatoon 2. Now Splatoon 3 came out. I got the game as well, so maybe I'll become a Hearthstone Battleground player soon enough, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
And maybe you can coach me, because you're also a private coach. Tell me more about this. Like, how important is this in your career? Like, how much time do you allocate to private coaching?
Well, this is really an extension of my stream, I would say, where I'm a really, really educational focused streamer, where if you want to get better at the game, like, my stream is the right place. I might be a tad more serious than other players, and I might not go for the memes that often, where, like, some players will force a certain composition because it's fun. It might not be as good, but I will try to win, and I will explain what I'm doing in that process of trying to win. So the private coaching is really an extension of that, where it's just you and me. Then we'll be playing a game together, and I'll be looking at the decisions you make. That's one of them, but it's much more important to understand why are you making these decisions. Because if I can tell you the things you're doing wrong, but I also need to know, like, what decision-making process went on for you to make that call in the end. So if we can understand if you are overvaluing or undervaluing certain type of things, that can fix whole chunks of gameplay instead of just fixing one part at a time. Me just telling, no, this is wrong, this is right, this is wrong, this is right. As far as the time, I would say that ranges from week to week. I have months where I might not have any coaching. Then I have months where I have, like 8-9 hours of coaching. So that really depends on how many students I have at the time, if they want recurring coaching sessions, etc. But I've been doing that pretty much since I started playing Hearthstone, because I was doing those co-ops all the time, right? I was playing together with people anyway. So I essentially coach people for free for, say, a year or maybe even 2 years at the start, when my wrists were bad and I couldn't click as much myself. So that's where I gained all that experience, and I learned how to play together with other people, because it's different people have different personalities, different play styles, and they react better or worse to different styles of feedback, etc. So that's where I got all that experience, and that's what made me feel qualified to say, like, hey, if you would like to get better at the game, we can do a private coaching session.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that, do you record those sessions?
It depends on the preference of the student, really. Like, if they want it recorded, I'll record it for them. Sometimes they want to record it. Sometimes it'll happen on stream, where they say, hey, I don't mind being on stream, or I might even want to be on stream. And then it'll, automatically be recorded. It'll be a VOD. So
yeah, because that makes me think of, like, someone like Nice, for example. I'm sure you're familiar with Nice in League of Legends.
I have not kept up with the scene a lot. So
right. So he coaches people, and that's his content on YouTube, really. He just coaches people playing League, and he has a very strong personality. He's very blunt with his feedback, I guess. Right. I could say.
I might say, like, this was awful, or
right.
Like, I can't understand why you're doing this. Like
but there's I don't know. It makes me think of, like, if you record your sessions with your student, could be an interesting way to promote your coaching services, and also create some pretty awesome content there, which you're also getting paid to do anyways. So
yeah, absolutely. It's something that I definitely do check with if people do want it on stream, where that I do see a surge essentially in requests if we've had some good sessions on stream where other people see it and be like, oh, that looks cool, I might want one of those myself. So yeah, I could inquire if even if we're doing a private session, if they would like it to be uploaded, or if they would like to keep it private. Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. Do you have a YouTube channel?
I do have a YouTube channel, but I am terrible with it. I've had different editors in the past, and then times where I transitioned from playing Arena into Battlegrounds, and then there was some time where I was doing some TFT and stuff. So it is pretty much inactive right now.
Right.
And yeah, that's one of the things that I just know. You like it's one of those like I gotta lose weight. It's like and then working on it, I suppose,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Or
yeah. It's in the
it's
back
like
of
I
your
know it's
mind,
good
but
for me. I know I should be doing it, but it's sort of I guess it's difficult to get it started again.
well, it's just I think it's especially true when there's no clear plan on what needs to go there. For example, like saying something like, "Oh, I should be on TikTok,"
Yeah.
Everybody should be on TikTok, especially if you're a content creator, in my opinion. But not everybody should do everything on TikTok. You got to have a plan, and it makes a lot. I mean, it's only realistic to achieve those goals if you know what you're gonna do. If you say I'm gonna be on TikTok and I'm gonna be sharing clips, maybe that's as simple as that. Or I'm gonna be on YouTube and I'm gonna be just posting coaching sessions there. That's it. That's all I'll be posting. Then it makes it much more simple. It simplifies the whole thing, right? You're like, I know what my YouTube is for. I know what my TikTok is for. Instead of being like, oh, I should be there, because should be everywhere. If we want, for content creators, it should be everywhere. But having that planification or that structure can really help. So yeah, I could see it. All I'm gonna say is I could really see you educating people, getting paid to do it, coaching people, then uploading that content on YouTube, and be like, just can be like, oh, this is the build for this, or this is the, like you label it, and it stays relevant there for a while, because I know like the meta changes over time, but I'm guessing it at least would be stay relevant for a little bit of time, right? So I don't know, it's it would be one way to stretch your time invested in these coaching sessions.
That's a good idea indeed. Yes.
Cool. We're moving on to the next segment of the podcast. I'm always excited to get these next segments, because especially this one, explain this post on Twitter. I never know what the post is, because our producer picks the post for us, and so whenever I look at them, it's the first time I look at them, and I got one here from January 8th from this year.
Okay.
And it says, disappointed with my performance in today's tournament. I'm playing tomorrow only because yesterday was a great day. I will do my best to step it up and show some good gameplay. Can you tell us a bit more about what got you to write this particular tweet at that moment?
Yeah, so that was the first day of a Twitch Rivals tournament. We got a lot of high-level players got invited, and the top 2/3 of the field would advance to the second day, and I barely got into the top two, where I played quite poorly. I made a lot of mistakes, and I had a really strong start and then a really weak finish, and I was almost convinced that I wouldn't make the top 2/3 cut. Now what went before that is I have a daughter. She's almost 2 now, but she was going through a bit of a rough patch there sleeping wise, so that was an extremely sleep deprived week for me. So it's just a frustrating thing where, I mean, obviously I didn't blame her, right? It's just, it got to be careful, right? Because we can become resentful, be like, oh, if she wasn't crying, I'd be winning right now. So, be like, hey, that's how it is. Suck it up, right? Suck it up. So, but yeah, still, going into it, I was like, yeah, I'll just give myself like, a 10% chance to make it through or whatever. I just wasn't confident at all. And then, made it through, but still disappointed with how strong I started and then how weak the last few games were. Lots and lots of early exits in those games. But then, my wife stepped it up that night and just said, okay, you sleep, right? I'll take care of business. And then that next day I was just completely recharged. And both my friend Collins and we made it to the final 8, who then got on to play in the Twitch Rivals finals. So that was super cool.
That's amazing. And for sure, like, support at home is crucial, right, for these types of moments.
Absolutely, yeah.
When you're not performing well, like, how do you look back at it? Like, do you take a step back, analyze what gone wrong, and how do you get better and back up the next day?
I mean, that's a big topic, right? There's lots and lots of stuff there. So I try to make sure that I put myself in a position to be as sharp as possible. So I'll try to first check, all right, am I eating right? Am I exercising? Am I getting enough sleep? Right. So those are the first things, like everything inside my control, of course. Like, am I taking care of that? If not, I'll be like, all right, well, handle it, right? Take care of it. Make sure that you can actually focus, that your body isn't working against you when you're trying to perform. The other one is just, my actual gameplay, where there's certain mistakes because I just didn't know. And it's like, okay, well, I got beat and then I learned, and next time I'll try to do better because now I understand something that I didn't understand before. And sometimes you make mistakes that you shouldn't make, but I like to say that I just haven't internalized it at that point. Where if I'm still making a mistake, that means it's not internalized. It's not automatic. I'm still able to make that mistake. And then the other one, the last component there, I'd say, is how you treat yourself, right? It's very easy to be angry at yourself for not performing well and to be very mean. So I try to take a step back there, as you said, and say, okay, well, let's make sure that we're being fair here, and that it's for me, it's my ego that I have to take care of. Well, maybe not take care of, but I have to watch it. Because whenever I react badly to a loss, I have to say, okay, is this me or is this my ego right now that's just hurt and disappointed and kind of just throwing a tantrum and just like, I played so bad and this was, they got lucky and this and that. So when I do get to detach there, take a step back, say, okay, this is just my ego throwing a tantrum right now. It's a lot better. So those three things, making sure that, physically I'm feeling well, that I update my gameplay, that, if there's things I didn't know and I know now, okay, cool, I'll try to do better. And then making sure that, I'm reacting the way I want to and not just, doing what my ego wants me to do. Like if I just lost, my ego might be hurt, and you react in a way that you don't really want to react. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a great way to look at it. And I think keeping the ego in check is like, as a gamer, anyone who's a gamer, and raging typically is the ego. That's like,
usually that's the ego being hurt. Like I am better than this. I should have won, and they got lucky, or this or that. It takes many different forms of
but it stops us from getting better, because when it's other people's fault, when we've done everything we could, like it's just we're unlucky, or I mean, guess what? I'm sure we're sometimes unlucky. I'm sure sometimes we're, they got lucky maybe, but there's also always something we can improve whatever we do, right? So looking back at it and understanding that we control only a portion of it, but within that portion that we control, have we done everything we could, to get the best results possible? Because at the end of the day, your win rate's never going to be 100%. It might be 54%, or that's even really good, I think, depending on the game. So you're going to lose. The idea is like, when you lose, or even when you win, what have you done that made you win or not in that moment, right? And keep a cool head, I guess, or what's the word for it? What's the saying,
I suppose not being results oriented, where you just focus on, as you mentioned, the things you can control, and then a lot of the time the result for some portion is not in your control. So then you will have to just accept, okay, sure, yes, I got unlucky, but I could have. The way how we approach that in Battlegrounds is we have this little tool, which I don't use most of the time because I think it's awful, but you have a percent calculator. So every time you have a round, the round will tell you your likelihood of winning that round based on your board strength. Because
really?
Yeah, it can vary quite a bit. So you might have coin flips where it's 50-50, 70-30, 90-10, 95-5. And so you can very easily be like, oh my God, I lost this 10%er and I would have won the game if not for that. But as you mentioned, then you have to go back and see, well, are there things I could have done during my turn that would have actually turned it into 100%? And I would not have had the chance to get unlucky. And yeah,
Yeah.
that's very difficult for most people to look at that, to say, like, the evidence is here. Clearly, I got unlucky. I was 90% favored to win. But, well, you made a mistake, and that mistake cost you that last 10%. And that, that was the only way for you to lose. And, it happened.
Yeah.
So, but that's,
Absolutely.
yeah, that's indeed quite difficult to make that transition, to really look at what you could have done better instead of all the surrounding factors.
Absolutely. Then we got another tweet. You might recognize the date. October 26, 2020.
Ah, yes.
Meet Louise. Mother and daughter are both doing well. I'll be at least a couple of days before. It'll be a couple of days before my next stream. Louise, we talked about her a bit earlier. Now, how, if she doesn't go through like her nights or whatnot, how it would affect you, of course. And I completely get it. I got a 4.5-year-old boy, went through it. Now everything's fine with the sleep schedule here. But how else did she impact it and changed your life?
Perspective, I suppose, is the word there, where it's, and I guess meaning, those two words, perspective and meaning. So you never have to ask yourself why you're doing any of it anymore, pretty much ever, which is awesome. So it's like a instant meaning. It's for the kid. Okay, I'll make sure that she has the best life possible, and anything I can do to help there, we're gonna do that. And perspective in that other things just don't matter as much. It's much harder to get upset about the little things, and it's so much easier to just say, okay, this sucks, but I'm gonna do it anyway. Yeah, I guess that's we can talk about it more, but that's what it feels like, perspective and meaning.
Yeah, well said. I mean, I couldn't agree more. I think my son is like a temple for me. If I feel down, not that I would go to him if I feel down. It's more like if I have a bad day, I'm still gonna play with my kid, and when I do play with my kid, I forget about everything, and it's just about him. It's about the time we have together, and that time, like, perception of time as well has changed quite a bit for me. Seeing him like him grow that fast. Now 4.5 years old. I value time even more now than I did before he was on Earth, just because of, it's not just me, and it's hard to see yourself get old. Like, you can see someone else get old. It's much easier, especially at that age, because they morph,
Yeah.
in a blink, really. So, oh, well said. That's beautiful, and it's great to see a fellow father be impacted so positively as well, about the birth of their child. It's amazing. We got a couple of audience questions here.
Okay.
So the first one is, if there was a strategic game other than Hearthstone which you could get your hands on and dedicated your life to, which game piques your interest?
The first thing that comes to mind is StarCraft, because that's a game that I did really, really enjoy, because it was so challenging. The only factor I'd be afraid of right now, where I'm 32, so
Yeah.
yeah, there's a lot of gamers that are in their 30s that do well in StarCraft, but they've been playing,
Yeah, they haven't
all
stopped.
that time.
Yeah.
So to pick the game back up and then try to be competitive, so that would really be more a challenge for myself and a competition against myself. How good can I be? Can I be better than, how the player I was a couple weeks ago, half a year ago, etc. If it were just, like, okay, you would want to do as well as you can, so pick something, a little bit more within my possibilities right now. Probably a different auto battler, so TFT or any game that might come on the market that has that similar feel to it. Because as I said, since the though the auto chess have been just hooked. It's been super, super fun to master these games.
Yeah. I mean, I remember StarCraft 2 when it came out. I remember specifically going to the video game store at like midnight to pick it up, like the physical version, the physical PC version. So it's been that long.
No, I got one too. So
Yeah.
I bought it.
And I think I still got the box somewhere, but and I remember being decent, and I really want to say decent with, like, not good in any means, but at start I was like platinum or something like this, right? And I was really into it, and I was getting better and better and better. And as I said, eventually I got not bored, but I wanted to try other games. So I went on to try other games, came back like, I don't know, a month or two afterwards, and I just sucked. I felt like I sucked because like everybody else kept on playing for a couple of months. So I would really be afraid of going back to StarCraft 2 right now, like personally. And for a guy that has never been really good at the game either, right? So could be daunting. But if you're a content creator like yourself, which has experience and so much knowledge and ability, which I don't have, I think like it's a great game to like sink your teeth in again, because again the ceiling is so high. There's so much to learn. There's so much room to get better, even at the higher level. I'm sure these guys still see themselves as like able to learn even more, right?
Oh,
to get better.
yeah.
So
I do watch some GSL, so it's cool to really still to this day see some strategies evolving. Like the last GSL had a Protoss champion, and that hadn't happened in 5 years, and the game hadn't changed that much. So it's really cool to see that one player figured it out. Like, hey, Protoss is actually not so bad. You guys are just playing it wrong. So
right.
that was really cool to see. Yeah.
Are they working on StarCraft 3 by any, like, have you heard anything about StarCraft 3?
I have no idea about that.
No idea. Huh? Yeah, I was like, because it's been so long. I don't know. Yeah. Second question we have here from the audience is, have you ever thought about using your strategic aptitude and skills to try and be competitive in other games? For instance, how do you think you'd fare in League of Legends or chess?
I would say the main question here is, does it make sense to do that? Because would it be fun? Absolutely. It'd be so much fun. So if I could just say, hey guys, like for the next couple months or weeks, we're just going to play this different game. We're going to learn it. But all of you are going to stick around, right? And just watch me learn it. And, no one's going to leave.
Sign this contract right now, right here.
Yeah. Chain and ball, put them there, keep watching. So that's the main concern there whenever you're thinking, oh, let me just play something else. And I do really, really love playing Hearthstone Battlegrounds. I know that some players, they do get burned out playing the same game. And once again, I feel like here I've been blessed in that regard, where I have no issues playing the same game, because it's not the same game. There's patches, and then within a patch, there's different weeks where there's concepts that you learn and your understanding of the game changes. So I think if you really, really apply yourself, if you're not just going through the motions of, oh, I'll just turn on my stream, I'll start playing the game, my 6 hours are up, I'm going to go offline now, then yeah, I think you can get absolutely bored with the game. But if you're really, really invested, you really apply yourself, you're really pushing the limits of your performance, then for me, it's so easy to be captivated by the game, just week after week, month after month. But yeah, it'd be fun to indulge myself and say, hey, let's play chess for the next 2 months and just see how far we can get, or let's play some League and just start climbing and see how high we can get. Absolutely, but practically, it's just not very feasible, I'd say.
Now, the last segment, called Rapid Fire. 15 questions. This or that.
Right. Do my best. Not great at these.
You ready? Let's do this. Waffles or croissant?
Croissant.
French or English?
English.
Siri or Alexa?
Oh, no preference. I don't use either. So.
Bulldogs or Labradors?
Go with a Labrador.
Be the president for a day or a billionaire for a day?
President.
Eat toilet paper or eat paper towel?
Oh, God. I guess toilet paper.
Would you rather sniff a marker or eat an eraser?
I'll sniff a marker. Sure.
Be broke but happy, or rich but sad?
Happy.
Sucks or no sucks?
Socks.
Would you rather give up social media or eat the same dinner for the rest of your life?
Oh, that's interesting. I do see. The thing is, I kind of eat the same dinner almost all the time.
Really?
Right. So, but I don't. I wouldn't really have trouble giving up social media. So I'll give up social media to keep the option open. But that would be an easy one for me. Like, because
Okay.
both
I
are kind
might
of
want to go back to this one after the
All right,
questions.
sure,
Fluffy pillow or flat pillow?
Fluffy.
Make music or create artworks?
Artwork.
Would you rather have a face that everyone laughs at or a name that everyone laughs at?
I'll go with the name.
Zippers or Velcro?
Zipper.
Hearthstone or Yu-Gi-Oh?
Oh, Hearthstone, but Yu-Gi-Oh has a special place.
There we go. 15 questions answered. Well done. But now I want to know, what are you eating every night?
Oh, right. Yeah. So that is just me removing a decision where I'm like, oh, what I'm gonna eat, what I'm gonna eat, what I'm gonna eat.
Yeah.
I mainly eat some ground beef with vegetables. I'd say out of the year, more than 300 days.
Oh, really?
So there'll be some changes here and there because it's not actually a rule where I have to eat that, but
Right.
that'll be my default, so I don't have to think about it.
Yeah.
Because it's sort of all round. It's not something that I get bored of, and you can mix up the vegetables what you put in there.
Yeah, for sure. Do you like season it in like special way, or how do you?
Well, you can put some curry powder on the vegetables or just your regular pepper and salt. I'm by no means a chef or an artist in the kitchen, but it's pretty much just I don't have to think about what I'm gonna eat. I don't have to think about like, oh, what do I have to put on my list when I go to the grocery store, and it's just okay. This is what I buy. This is what and also I have the calorie intake roughly down where I know how much is gonna keep me on my weight quite easily without having to make an adjustment and stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Shadybunny, Wesley, thank you so much for being here today with us on this episode of Streamforge Radio and opening up and talking about who you are and getting behind the camera, behind the scenes a bit with you. At least for me, and I'm sure for the people at home as well. That was a real pleasure to have you today.
Oh, it was my pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
I invite every single one of you guys to check Shadybunny online on Twitch at twitch.tv/Shadybunny. Twitter is Shadybunny Live. And guys, if you want to learn more about Hearthstone Battlegrounds, I sure do. And go check him out. If you want to even be coached by Shadybunny, go to his. Do you have a website, or is it more like on your description section that there's more information about this aspect?
So just twitch.tv/Shadybunny. That's where
everything
you
is.
can find me. And then there will be a panel below with all kinds of information.
Amazing. I'm gonna try Hearthstone Battlegrounds. You sold me, I'm telling you. So thank you again, guys at home. We're here every Tuesday. You know it. Tell your friends, family. It's always a pleasure to have you here with us. Let us know who you want us to interview next. I'll see you guys next week for another episode of Streamforge Radio. Thanks for listening.